Hello and welcome back to my channel, Keen Reads. My name is Jared, and today I have one book to review for you, and it is the final Virginia Woolf novel that I will read for the first time. So this is the only book I finished this week. It is The Years by Virginia Woolf. This is her 8th novel that was published. It was the last novel that was published during her lifetime. She published 9 novels total, with Between the Acts being published posthumously. And it is the 9th novel by her that I will be reading. This follows a family called the Pargeters, I believe that's how you say it, throughout the years. So each chapter represents a year in the life of this family. There's a family with several children that grow up throughout the years, and it follows their interactions with each other, with their cousins, and then eventually with their nieces and nephews. It starts in about the 1880s and ends in the present day, which is probably 1936 or 1937, which I believe is when the book was published, towards the end of Virginia Woolf's life. I believe Virginia Woolf passed away in 1941 or 42. I think 41. But I read it in this Alma Classics edition. I've never seen these before, but I enjoyed this edition. It was very tightly bound, so I had to really use a lot of pressure to open it up. But that would make the spine didn't crease or anything, so that was nice. Regarding my thoughts on the book, I enjoyed it. It was probably a middle tier Virginia Woolf novel for me. It kind of grew on me throughout, and it felt like it was longer than it was, but also shorter than it was. And what I mean by that, so it was about 300 pages, but I felt like I spent a lot of time with it. Maybe that was on purpose. Maybe she wrote it in a way to make it seem like you were spending more time with these characters than you actually were, because 300 pages isn't a really long novel. I felt like it was longer than that, but there wasn't a lot of plot or a lot of things that happened, similar to most Virginia Woolf novels, that also made it feel a little bit shorter. So I don't know. I liked it enough. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I don't put a lot of weight into my star ratings, though, just because I think it's kind of arbitrary. And it's really hard to rate a lot of books just between 1 and 5 stars, or I guess 0 stars. But a little bit more of my thoughts on this. Like I said, it follows the family of the Pargeters. Each chapter is a year in their life, and it's not necessarily following a central narrative. So each year focuses on, each year starts first of all with a short description of the seasons or of something of the environment, nature around which that scene is taking place, whether it's the springtime, whether it's November, a month or a season, and then it goes into the narrative for that year, with each year being almost a short story revolving around these characters. The years are not really connected. It's just describing events in their lives. So one of the years is a party. One of the years talks about the two of the cousins going to see the opera. Things along those lines, to where it's not like there's a central theme or a central story that's being followed. It's merely aspects of their lives that you're seeing in different perspectives from different points of view, or at least from different characters. It's third person, it's not different points of view. But as the book went on, I found myself enjoying it more and more. And I think I saw what Virginia Woolf was trying to do here by showing aspects of people's lives. I'm trying to think of a good way to think of this. I guess here's the example I thought of as I was reading it. Let's take my wife or anyone's significant other. You meet them at the age of 18, 22, 27, whatever age. They lived a full life up until that point, and they can tell you about things that happened, but they can't tell you what it was like to live their life, if that makes sense. You don't know the day-to-day, and you'll probably never be able to relate to the day-to-day of what their life was up until that point. You know the highlights or the checkpoints, the milestones. But our lives are so much more than that. And the same vice versa is true. They will never know yours. What your life was truly made up of. They will know what school you went to, what friends you had, your family relations, what trips you went on. They'll know the high points, but they never will get a good feel for what the first 20 or so years of your life really looked like. And maybe you disagree with that, but that's kind of what I was getting from this. And I feel like what Virginia Woolf was trying to show here were those small moments, those moments that really make up our lives, that we probably wouldn't really tell someone about. Something that wasn't really important enough to make our highlights that we would tell someone years later. But by telling them by showing each individual year, you get to see these moments as they happened. I hope that made sense. But that was kind of my feeling or my vibe throughout this book. And I really started picking it up in the last chapter, which is about 90 pages. And it takes place in what's called the present day, which again, like I said, it's probably 1936 or 37. Something else I noticed, which is two other aspects of this novel that I would like to talk about. One is it's very conventionally written. When you think of the progression of Virginia Woolf's novels, you have more conventional novels that were published first. So you have The Voyage Out, and then you have Night and Day. And then you get kind of her in-between novel, which would be Jacob's Room. And then after that, you get her real stream of consciousness writing. So you get, not necessarily in this order, I don't believe, but you get Mrs. Dalloway, you get To the Lighthouse, The Waves. Orlando is in there, which, again, maybe not stream of consciousness, but is not a conventional novel in any way, if you know what it's about. And then you get this, which, again, maybe it is unconventional in that it is more of a series of vignettes. In looking in people's lives, it's not a central narrative like her early conventional novels were. But as far as the method with which she tells the story was very conventional, I thought. And that's not a knock. I enjoyed it. I love her writing style. Another thing that I picked up, especially in the last section, and I don't think that there is any influence here. I don't think there's actually a connection between the two. But certain sections almost read like Hemingway. Very short, punchy sentences and quotes and things like that. And I just remember reading, I was like, this reads almost like a short story by Hemingway as I was reading some of the later year chapters. And I don't think Virginia Woolf, I don't know, she probably read Hemingway. I guess I'll know when I read her collection of essays, because she'll probably talk about Hemingway if she read any of them. I'm sure in her journals or her essays she talks about it. But I doubt she was influenced by Hemingway. It was just a connection that I made in my mind. But overall, really enjoyed this novel. Like I said, it's probably a middle tier Virginia Woolf for me. Probably behind like The Voyage Out, Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse and the Waves. Kind of in that area with Jacob's Room, Between the Acts, and Night and Day. I guess I'd call it second tier of only two tiers, because really Virginia Woolf hasn't written anything that I found was not enjoyable or not good. So that's my review of The Years by Virginia Woolf. It's the only book that I read this week. I had a very busy week. I had a couple banquets I had to go to, some stuff after work. I went to a concert. I went to see Arm's Length, which is one of my favorite bands. And yeah, I do have two books that I purchased today that I wanted to show you. So I got a gift card for Barnes & Noble. So I picked up some Vladimir Nabokov. This is Ada, or Ardor. And this is Penin. So what have I read? I've read Lolita and Speak Memory. And then earlier this year I read Pale Fire and really loved Pale Fire. So these are I think the other two major Vladimir Nabokov books that I think, if you want to get a good picture of what he's about, you should read. At least from my reading about him. I also have his lectures on American literature and I think it's lectures on literature in general, and then his lectures on Russian literature that I need to read too. But I haven't read anything I haven't liked by Nabokov, so I figured might as well pick these two up as well since I have the gift card. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week.